I should just say parenthetically that I don't know why I was reminded of this, but one of the other expeditions we did, some of you may have even seen the documentary, the TV documentary that was made of it. But we took, have any of you heard of the Duchess of York, Sarah Fergie? Well, Sarah was the patron of the charity, and she came along to base camp with us. And I had half a dozen mentally disabled people I was climbing with. And I thought, well, it's stupid for her to come all the way to base camp if she didn't actually climb the mountain. So I said, for God's sake, woman, climb the mountain. And and we had a wonderful moment where, and she knew Paul from her sort of visits as patron of the charity. And I don't think I've told you this story. There was a wonderful moment, and we got this on the documentary film, where Paul was on the summit of this 6,000-meter, 20,000-foot peak just south of Everest. And he reached down and grasped Sarah's hand and then sort of pulled her onto the summit. It was just a lovely moment. And we sat there on the summit for about half an hour, sort of just talking. And Paul was a very obsessive character. He had a biscuit tin in which he kept all his treasures. There was nothing actually in the biscuit tin, but the biscuit tin came with him everywhere, and he was showing Sarah the biscuit tin on the summit of this mountain. Well, don't know why I told you that, but anyway, it was a nice moment. But the reason I'm starting here, and the reason I'm showing you these pictures of Paul, is to try and make a connection between my career in the mountains, my life in the mountains, and my life in education. Because it seems to me, and the reason I talk a lot about Paul and his work, it seems to me that there's a pretty vivid and concrete demonstration that under the right conditions, even someone with a disability like Paul's can do quite extraordinary things. All right? And it seems to me that is the same as what we're trying to do in education as well. Despite the backgrounds of some of our youngsters, despite some of the problems they bring with them to our schools, under the right conditions, we're trying to create the conditions where every young person can succeed. And I think that, for me, is the sort of the unifying sort of focus of these two sort of fields that I've been working in. And really, I make no apology for beginning to talk with you and try to discuss with you the moral purpose for why we're here. All right? But it seems to me it is a complete and utter waste of our time to be meeting together, to be engaging in this work, unless we really have a very clear purpose for what we're doing, and that is to try and, as I said, create the conditions where every young person can reach their potential. Now, this slide that you're looking at now has a really important resonance for me personally. As Lena said, I was very grateful and quite proud to be appointed as the chief advisor to the Blair government in the second term of the Blair government to advise on school reform. So I left the university and became a civil servant. And what I tried to do during the sort of the 2002-2006 parliamentary term was to try and shift the focus of the Blairite reforms. I think many of you will have read a little bit about the Blairite reforms in the late 90s, which were driven very much top down, very much imbued with target setting and testing and so on, all of which I think most probably had a place. But what I was trying to do when I was in government was to try to shift the focus from just getting kids, sort of up to test results and meeting targets, to try and sort of really change the system a little bit so that we could actually focus much more on learning and actually build learning capability amongst young people. And so as a consequence of that, one of the policies we introduced in England at that time was a policy to do with personalised learning, where we put the focus not just on doing well in exams, but to try and build learning capability, to try and prepare young people to take their place in the learning society. And it seems to me that moral purpose, which we expressed, and I expressed sort of in that way. That's the sort of the image I used with principals and with teachers and with politicians in England at the time, to try and get that notion of, yes, it's important to actually meet VCE standards and so on, but it's also important to build young people who are competent learners, who have the sort of the skills and aptitudes and dispositions to sort of take their place in the knowledge society. And as I've been discussing with colleagues in the region, with sort of Wayne Craig and with Bruce and with other colleagues here, we've begun to try to sort of take this notion of moral purpose and to try and sort of link that to what we're doing here in the Northern Metropolitan Region, and in particular on these initiatives such as the AIZ. And I've tried, if you read through that, I've sort of tried to capture that notion of moral purpose, about trying to help young people to reach their potential, to strive for equity in our region, but also to try and align this moral purpose with what is going on in the state, with the blueprint, and also with the sort of the movements that are going on in Australia generally in terms of the federal government's commitment to education.